Bert, I said, Bert, what's it all about, mate?
Put the order on again, mate.
Making a spectacle of myself. Of course, they were all laughing sycophantically, weren't they? And the more they laughed, the more I did it.
Keep calm. We've got to keep calm. Don't panic. Don't panic.
His Reverence has heard some very strange noises.
Make it tender.
Oh, do be quiet, Mr. Gateman.
My unit is a hand-picked band of ruthless fighting men. And Godfrey.
Do you think that's wise?
There's been a resurgence in recent years of classic comedy, coming back to the fore now. And you guys have really kind of made Dad's Army your own in recent times. Tell us a little bit about the show and how that came about, the one that you do, the radio show.
Well, in one of my earlier shows, there's a bit in the middle where I do some Dad's Army voices to illustrate how I was the kind of child who lived in my head as a kid in a fancy world and used to go to school doing funny voices, rather like him. And so after that performance, people would always come up and say, oh, why don't you do a whole show about Dad's Army? And I can't think of a way of doing a whole show on my own about Dad's Army. They wouldn't be quite boring after about 10 minutes playing all the characters. Oh, I could do it, but what new is there to say about Dad's Army anyway? We all know it's brilliant. You know, we all know the stories about how they got together and all that, you know. But then I suddenly thought, one day I had this brainwave and I thought, nobody's done anything about the radio version of Dad's Army, because you've got Round the Horn as a stage show now, and Hancock's Half Hour's been done as a stage show.
They're all at it.
They're all at it. Navy Lark still doing the rounds now. Goon Show's all been done. A radio show on stage. So I thought, well, is there a way of doing Dad's Army as a radio show on stage? So initially it was going to be a solo, just me doing all the voices, and then I thought, that's going to be really hard work. So I called him Jack up, who I'd seen doing his Norm Wisdom show, and I said, are you, by any chance, a Dad's Army fan? And
yes.
you said...
I said, how much? No, I said, yes, I am. And funny enough, I'd been listening to the tapes first. I'd actually probably listened to Dad's Army on cassette before I even saw it.
Cassette?
Do you have to explain for people who are watching at home?
Viewers. So I was born in 1987, so I just was on the cusp of that, and slammed all trains. And cassettes were... No, they know what cassettes is. And I would listen to these...
Because what people may not realise is that, as well as Dad's Army being on television,
yes,
they'd actually done versions for, well, probably Radio 2, but lots of shows were actually in a radio script version.
Yes, no, Step 2 and Son as well, they did for the radio. Lots of those sitcoms they did. And Dad's Army was no exception. And they adapted about 60-odd episodes for the radio. So I'd been steeped in that from the age of 5 or 6. I was falling asleep at night listening to Jones. You're driving around in his van, Jones, and all that stuff. Loved it, and then I got on to actually see it on the videos and everything, and I just adored it. I've always loved Dad's Army.
So basically, when I called him up, that's what he said, and I said, "You wouldn't like to do a show with me, would you?" And he was like, "Oh, you sure?"
So how'd you come about? You said, right, you both want to do it. You're both great at voices and characters. How do you say? Well, how do you get permission to do this for a start?
Well, I took the show to the producer, James Seabright, and he then approached the estate of Perry and Croft, and they did a deal whereby we were given permission to use some of the episodes that had been adapted for radio. We're now, actually, I should say next year, going out with a new version of the show where we're going to do our own adaptations of episodes that weren't done for the radio. Some of the later ones, including the final episode. Yeah. So this is a radio show that's basically not been heard before. And we've done our own adaptations because I think we now feel confident enough with Dad's Army that we know how to do this show, how to make the characters work, and what's going to go over with the audience.
When this is all over, can we go and live in a little cottage?
Yes, with roses round the door.
Yes, and a nice big fridge in the kitchen.
What do you want a big fridge for?
Oh, to keep all the big joints of meat in, of course.
Well, after the war.
Oh, yes, after the war. Not that we won't have a joint or two before then.
So part of your art is being able to recreate without people saying, oh, that's been written by or adapted by somebody else. That feels like it's all part of the original.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. They would have heard that back in the 70s and nothing's changed. That's the aim of it,
So you've got your scripts. So how do you go about dividing up the characters? Because you play about 25 characters between two of you?
Something like
around that, yeah.
No confetti.
Is it true affection she feels for me? Does she love me for myself? Or does she love me for my meat?
Sorry, don't you think you are being just a little tiny bit harsh, sir?
Well, in rehearsals, we each tried different voices. We'd read the scripts and say, right, and this time you do Walker, I'll do Mannering, blah, 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 blah. I thought I'd be Mannering. And that's the great thing about the show. People always assume that I'm going to be playing Mannering, but then it comes out of his voice. The voice comes out of him. And go on, let's do a little bit of... What about awfully, just doing a little bit of your Captain Mannering?
You know, Wilson, I think you're probably the most selfish man I've ever met in my life.
Really?
You wear that uniform like a sack of porridge.
Just, I mean, for me, now, and the fans are very difficult to please.
They are.
And you're not just doing
They
it for
are.
fans, because
No.
there's a whole outside. But, you know, I saw it, and I saw it very early on. I saw it February, the first time around. Dan Crazy Cox came and saw it again at a local theatre. It's just extraordinary. It is absolutely
I
extraordinary.
find it extraordinary too when I'm stood there listening to him. I think, my God, that's good. How'd you do that? But I'm doing it as well.
But it is extraordinary.
It is, but I think it's, for me personally, I've listened to those rhythms since
Yeah.
I was 5. That
But
comedy
then again,
timing.
most people have. It's a
Yes.
particular
Yeah,
thing.
able to do it.
It's a
I
thing
suppose.
that, I mean, I'm just not blowing our trumpets, but you see, we're both untrained actors. We taught ourselves. We're doing on stage what we love, the way we want to do it, not
Yeah.
the way we've been taught to do it in a drama school. So it's a natural thing, a very particular skill that comes to both Jack and I quite easily, and that we've done it all our lives.
Oh yeah, I used to do voices at school. The Simpsons I used to do.
Go on, do.
Oh, go on then, do your voices. I used to get it.
I'm still
it was a
doing
good way to get out of being bullied more than anything. So I just turned into do Smithers, get it off me, and turn into various Homer, Marge, oh Marge, Homer. I don't want guns in my house. Well, that sort of stuff. I used to do all those voices, and people just laughed. It was just a good way to be the clown at school, which I'm sure you did as well.
I don't know what you mean.
I think you do, sir.
Seriously at school.
I think you
About
do.
as serious as I am now. Voices, most of us, some of us can do snippets, you know, which makes someone know who it is. But actually, you guys can sustain a half-an-hour show in characters or with voices and
Yes.
get gags out. It's a different kind of music
it
and
is
rhythm.
It is different. It definitely.
I don't know what your process is about this, but with me, if I've got to play somebody, I sort of think of them. I
Yeah.
sort of see them in my mind's eye, and then it comes out. I mean, it's not just famous people, it's if you're telling a story about something that happened when you're at the shops and you want to give an idea. Kenneth Williams was very much like this. He would always give a characterization. He wouldn't just say, so-and-so said this to me. He would say, you came up to me, he said, "Yeah," and he would then do a voice of a character that would tell the story, because that's what we're doing, is storytelling.
Did you ever argue over a role saying, oh, I want to do that, or I can do that? Because you could probably both do some of them together.
No, I think we
Not
actually.
Mrs. Fox. I'm sure you didn't argue over Mrs. Fox.
Well, you
I
want
wanted
to do
play
Mrs. Fox.
Oh, Mr. Jones.
It was funny. We really settled quite naturally on all the voices, I thought, didn't we? We knew who was stronger on what. From day one, I said, you need to do Fraser, because I'm terrible at Scottish accents. I'm not touching Fraser, so you've got to look after Fraser. And for me, Pike is obviously within my vocal range anyway, so it makes sense for me to do Pike and talk a bit like that. And I might like that, Uncle Arthur. So it just, some of the voices just fall naturally within our vocal range. So it wasn't, we weren't battling.
Yeah,
were
the one
we?
I was surprised at was Walker, actually, because initially I've got a recording of an early rehearsal where Jack's doing Walker, and then I tried it, and I found actually it became one of my favourite characters to play, Mr. Mannering. It's all like that, you know, kind of, you know. Once you get into that, it just sort of comes out.
It's
But
all
I can
body
only do it, rather like him with Mannering, who does this with the hands. I can only play Walker if I do that. If I've got that in my hand.
Constantly.
Otherwise, it
puffing
won't
the
come
fag.
out. It has to be like that.
No. And Mannering, I'm always twiddling my fingers at the side of my
That's
leg.
part of it, isn't it?
Just, especially when he's flustered. You know, when he's a slightly awkward finger twitch at the side, you know.
Oh, no, not in my case. I've had a very happy marriage. Very happy indeed.
Ooh, I've always had a soft spot for you, Mr. Mannering.
Don't keep me in suspense any longer. I love you and love you and love you and... Oh, it's a colonel for you, Mr. Mannering.
Well, he was bound to get his calling up papers sooner or later.
But they couldn't possibly take him, not with his chest. If he goes without his scarf, he gets croup, and then I'm up all night.
Yes, well, couldn't he possibly wear his scarf underneath his uniform?
Can you see him doing that? He's like you. He won't be advised.
And then John Le Mesurier, he has this thing where he slightly touches his face with that finger.
Yeah.
He sort of goes like that, you know, all the time, constantly touching his face.
Yeah.
And
I believe John's widow, Joan, came to see us on more than one occasion.
she's been to 3 times.
It must be difficult. Well, it must have been the first time.
Yeah, the first time, of course, I want to get this right. But she absolutely loved it. She's a good friend, and she's was extremely supportive of the show. She just loved it. She was having them all back again, which is the highest compliment.
Yeah, she was adorable.
Highest
She was very
compliment you can
This
be paid.
seems to have started, and it now seems to be growing. Are you surprised that actually that coming into 2020, you're going to be doing another season of this? Or did you think, well, we'll do that and put that to bed, move to something else?
I didn't think it was going to be 3 years by the time we get to next
Certainly
year, isn't
not.
it? It's a long time.
I thought it would be something to get through the 2017 Fringe with. I thought, well, this gets through 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, and then what next? Little did I realise. I mean, to be honest, when we were rehearsing it first, I wasn't sure at all if it was going to go over. I just thought, us stood here with microphones and the scripts in front of us doing the voices, is that really going to be worth the ticket price? And we were astonished. The very first performance we went out and did, the response we got was instant. So we thought, well, somehow, mysteriously, we've hit on something here.
And it's not just people of age who may have seen it. There's younger people coming to see it as well now.
I'm one of our youngest fans, Ivy. She's 7. We have.
This must be 8.
Oh, it must be 8 now. Yeah. No, I look out to the audience and we see whole families there, and ranging from age 5 upwards. It's lovely, and that's one thing I really like about it as well. It really is a proper family show.
Lovely for me to be able to bring my son.
Exactly.
Who was
Perfect.
in his early 20s.
Yes.
For him to understand and enjoy the humour, and then say, wow, these guys. He looks upon you guys as heroes because you brought the joy and the laughter that he gets from the show.
Well, you know, one of the great times that we had with the show was earlier this year at Thetford, at the Dad's Army Museum in Thetford. In these outdoor scenes in Dad's Army, where they're in the van chasing across the fields after wheels and God knows what, that's all Thetford. And so they have a museum, Dad's Army Museum, which is excellent if anyone happens to be in Thetford. And they have every year the big weekend, and it's the whole town of Thetford is taken over by Dad's Army. Everyone who goes there is a big Dad's Army fan, and we were booked to do our show there in, was it June or July?
June, I think, yeah.
And of course, you know, you go out with some trepidation, not only all the fans, but there was Frank Williams, who played the vicar, in the front row, and Jeffrey Holland, of course, from Heidi High, who I've worked with a few times. And we were just blown away. It was one of the best audiences that we've ever played to. They absolutely loved it. And I think the reason is they realised that we love it too.
Yes.
That we adore Dad's Army. We're very respectful. We're not doing anything out of character with it or sending it up or anything like that. We're doing it as well as we can.
No, it's a big love letter from us to Dad's Army, I would say.
And you're not tiring of it?
No, because we're keeping it fresh. That's the nice thing, because with these new episodes we've adapted, it's a whole nother realm of characters, a whole nother emotions are going on, and comedy. It keeps us fresh.
Well, I worked out that there's around about 80 episodes, give or take. It'll be 3 a year. I reckon you've got another 27 or so years here.
That would be nice.
You'll be almost the age of some of them by then.
We're going to say Arnold Ridley.
You see, I'm not going to have a pension or anything when I get. I'm one of these people who, you know, there won't be anything. So I've always hoped, all my life really, that I would be like Arnold Ridley, and when I was 73, my big break would come, just when I thought it was all over and finished. And suddenly you become a national treasure when you're nearly finished.
Bill Owen did it, lasted the summer wine. He was
That's
57,
true.
58, and he got 28 years out of it before he died.
Thank you very much.
That's what we pray for, but, you know.
And you do other shows as well. You've got, you've could have been bringing back up Pompeii, aren't you?
Well, at Pompeii, I was asked in the Edinburgh Fringe this year when I was doing a very different show about the Cato Street plot of 1820, which we can come back to. And a message came through, we've got the rights to a play based on Up Pompeii, the great Frankie Howard vehicle. And would you like to play the part in an audio with audience? And of course, I jumped at it, and I asked Jack as well, can Jack be in it? Yeah, and he was brilliant as the young Nauseous, the young son who writes.
Sickening name.
Wasn't it?
Nauseous. And
It was a return, though, to Frankie Howard.
yes, because
for
I
you,
play
wasn't it?
Frankie, I feel very, very comfortable. I do slip into Frankie quite easily. No, listen, shut your face, don't hear me, don't. Oh, communist muck, I think, really. Oh, right, well, riff-raff, that's what they are. Anyway.
He's in the room.
No, shut your face, no! I can just go on and on.
Oh, yeah. Usually I leave around now.
But I was asked to play the part of Frankie in a play a few years ago on the radio, which was about Frankie's offstage self, not his performance persona, but who he was offstage. He was a very unhappy, depressed, neurotic man indeed. And that was great, of course, because so am I. So, again...
Method actor, you see.
I didn't have to do any acting in that at all.
I was going to ask you guys, a lot of people who provide comedy make people laugh.
Our miserable
do
self.
find it a bit difficult behind this. How are you both?
What, in my health? How are you? I'm quite chipper. No, I don't have all those demons going on. I don't. I work.
Always so lucky, isn't he?
I feel very fortunate to do
but
what I
then again,
do.
he's got a job, he's got a proper job as well. He works here at the theatre. As well as being a brilliant performer, he can also do all the other jobs.
And he gave me a ticket outside for parking as well. yes, he did.
Yes, I'll get that money off of you later.
Well, I can't do anything, so I have long periods when I'm out of work, and then you see my other side, how anxious one gets. I absolutely hate not working.
When you first, because you did the great Kenneth Williams show, one-man show, and I saw it in the 90s.
Yes.
When we first
Late
met.
night, yeah.
And then you would have been early to mid-30s.
I'm born in 62, so I was 34 when I did that show in 1996.
Bert, I said, Bert, what's it all about, mate? I thought, let's do something completely different. So we opened the show with this very intellectual diatribe, which hopefully will make the audience go, now this isn't what it sounds like him, and it's got his rhythm to it, but it's not what we were expecting.
Having lived life like he'd lived life now, do you think you bring something deeper to it now than you would have done when you were playing it in your 30s?
Yes, again, it's life experience. And as I get older, I realise in a horrible way, how like Kenneth I can be. And that when I was reading his diaries during the research, of course you're looking for things you identify with. I found it very depressing reading his diaries because I thought, God, it's like me. He's almost as bad as I am.
I was on Just a Minute today, and of course I was bawling and shouting and going and shouting the odds and making a spectacle of myself. And of course they were all laughing sycophantically, weren't they? And the more they laughed, the more I did it. And I went home feeling suicidal. And when I read that, I thought, my God, everything we loved about Kenneth was actually torture to him.
He's almost as neurotic and unhappy about, because in that show there's a bit where I'm playing him, he's like, oh, I can't go on anymore. And I stop him and I say, hey, Kenneth, sit down. No, sit down here, thank you very much. And I tell him off and say, now listen, you've got a wonderful career, everybody loves you, why are you so miserable? And that was what I thought reading the diaries of Kenneth Williams was, this man seems to have everything. Most actors would kill for his career. And yet he's so miserable. But now, as I've got older in life, I realised that there is no success or money or fame or anything that is actually really going to deal with those demons that we all carry with us. But just most people don't carry them and present themselves on stage in a persona.
We live in a time where people do think that fame is everything, and that that everything. When you go and see someone in a show, what amazes me about coming to see you guys, and I see John T. Stevens and Ian Ash Patel that do the Morecambe and Wise, and you've got packed houses, and everyone's clapping, and everyone's laughing, and standing ovations, etc. And then half an hour later, the audience have gone, and they're helping to collapse. You're helping to collapse the sets.
Oh yeah.
Everyone thinks it's far more glamorous than it is.
No, absolutely, you are there. Absolutely, same with when I was touring Wisdom. I was there. Bang, 10 a.m. Get in. There we are, backing the truck up, taking the set, putting it up, focusing the lights all day, doing the tech, sound checks. Huge day, and then you do the performance. And then you do the get out. Yeah. So you're going 10 in the morning till 11 at night, and then you go home.
And the show is actually the short.
The show's the tiny part.
Tiny part. And yet it is the sacred part of the day. It's what it's all for. Yeah. That moment when you're out doing it, and the audience is watching.
That's what you're there for.
But even then, you might hear the audience laughing, but as a performer, you're thinking, right, what's the next bit? What do I do next? Is this next bit going to work? Oh, they didn't laugh as much at that.
Yeah.
All those things are going on.
Yeah, you're driving down. I always say you're driving down a very busy motorway, and you're keeping an eye on all these lanes and trying to keep tabs on everyone. Oh, that gag's failing. all the audience dropping a bit, I need to speed this up. So your mind's working so fast, in a one-man show especially.
So at what stage can you start enjoying it? When you really feel, I don't mean on an individual night, when you've when it's running and you...
I think, when you've run it in and you've honed it, you know what works, you know, you can almost guarantee you're going to get a laugh, and it's very unusual if you don't. You know, that's lovely. You're building up to that moment. You say, "Here it comes!" Bang, and he gets a nice big reaction, and that's lovely when you can ride a laugh.
Satisfying.
Yeah.
So you were playing Kenneth Williams in the in your mid-30s, and that was 20 years ago. You've been playing Norman Wisdom in your mid to late 20s.
Late 20s,
and that was just a few years ago, and after he'd only just died.
Yes.
How was it? I mean, again, you wrote that.
Cancel those dresses, Freeman speaking. Put the order on again, Mikey. Can you please cancel those 5,000 dresses pink? Freeman speaking. Make it 10,000. No, make it 5,000. No, friends, say cancel them all together, please.
And that's a long show. There's lots of, everyone imagines a one-person show, but it is your one on stage. But there's lots of characters within it. Why did you choose Norman Wisdom to do a one-man show about?
Again, that was growing up, watching his films and loving his films, and working here again. I met him because he was the local patron for the local Amdram company. And I remember meeting him, and he signed my little book that I had, his autobiography, and I was so amazed I was meeting this idol of mine that I loved. And I'd written to him as well on the Isle of Man, and he'd replied to me, and he'd signed these photos, and he'd made a lot of time for me, which was very sweet of him. And it always stuck in my mind. And when he passed away, I thought, I'd love to see a play on him. Nobody's done a play on him. And I'd just recently seen Bob Golding's play on Morecambe, which was superb. I adored what Bob did with that. And it really sparked something in me to think Norman deserves a play. All these Tommy Cooper, Morecambe and Wise, blah, 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 they've all had plays. Norman had been left out. And I thought, why? Because I'd read I knew what he was about, I knew what he'd been through, and the story and the trajectory of him. So I just sat down and pecked out a little email to his son, Nick Wisdom, and a week later I got a reply saying, come and meet me and have a chat. And I went down there, only down the road in Haywards Heath, and I said what I wanted to do, why I wanted to do it. And he said, normally I'd pass you on to Norman's old agent, but you know what, I'm going to deal with you on this. And yep, you have my blessing, you can go away and write it. And I did, I went away for a year, I wrote it, co-wrote it with a friend of mine, Martin Bell. And self-produced it. It was one of the most stressful things I have ever done in my life, and I've never worked so hard. I mean, I was nearly throwing up of a morning with stress and anxiety, but I had so much passion to do it and to honour him and to tell his story and to do it to the best of my abilities. And the family was so supportive. Nick and Jackie Wisdom were so supportive of me doing it.
And they loaned you at the time one of his actual suits.
Yes.
So when you become the character that he became, people still think Norman Wisdom was a character. He was a person who created the character. Yeah. You were allowed to wear one of his suits.
Yes, because I'd run the original producer who was going to help produce it dropped out, and I thought, right, I've now got to produce this on my own. I was having a bad week. And the phone went and it said Nick Wisdom. I thought, oh, thank goodness. And I went, hello, Nick. Blah, blah, blah. We had a lovely chat. And I said, I'm still trying to find a suit, a Gump suit that matches your father's, that's bang on. And it's hard to find. And there was a little pause and he went, oh, you know what, Jack? I think I've got a spare one that you could use. You're about his size. Just use one of his spare ones. I nearly dropped the phone. And I said, oh, my word. He said, pop down to the shop tomorrow. Come and get it. And there I go, hands it over in a little bag. I come back to this very studio and I got changed just behind this set in there, and I put it on and I looked in the mirror and I was very emotional and I had goosebumps. It is an extraordinarily powerful thing to put such an iconic costume on, all that, and then you can even see the sweat stains in it. The DNA is in it of him, and that's a very powerful thing. For an actor, the biggest part is when you put a costume on. Let alone the person who actually owned it.
And I know that you were very sad, until recently you were very sad that you, obviously, once the show was over, you did 3 years, you put it to bed, you had to give it back, but that wasn't the end of the story.
No, in fact, only 2 weeks ago, again, Nick rang up for a chat, and we were talking. He said, "Oh, I've been chatting to Jackie, and the family have decided that we want you to keep the suit." And it really moved me, and and that sort of sums them up as a family and how lovely they've been to me, and how supportive they've been, because they've seen how hard I've had to work and how the passion I had to tell.
You've got his stage suit.
Stage suit,
and
yeah.
I've got his stage shoes and socks.
You
should get together.
I was about to say. I think they fit him, but they fit me. Moving very swiftly on.
Wait a minute. What do you mean he got his shoes and socks?
Well, this is a funny story because Jack says, come to Bonham's, they're doing an auction. This was 2 summers ago. They're doing an auction of one of Norman's gump suits. So I said, well, I'll come along. It'd be nice to come out and see. He says, and come and meet the Nick and Jackie. So I said, oh, I'll come along. And I thought there was some stuff there that Elstree Studios might be interested. So I went in there and I got myself one of these paddle things, that you have to like that. And so I was sitting next to you, and there was Nick and Jackie sitting there. And as well as one of his suits, they also had beautifully framed and mounted pair of his stage shoes, socks, strip of the suit, and the picture of him wearing them. Absolutely beautiful. Yeah. And I thought, oh, well, it said how much it was going to go for. I thought, well, I can't afford that. And I knew there was a guy at the back that wanted it, but I could see he was going to hustle me. Anyway, so I just sat there, and they came up to that item, and they called the item, and they went, no, my page on Norman shoes, and gave the whole thing, and said, do I hear £100? Do I hear £100? And I just sat there. And I thought, where's the guy at the back? He hasn't said anything. So I just whipped my padlock, went like that. And left it, and he says, do I hear, I've got to move on, I've got lots of items, do I hear, no, going for £100, going for £100, and it was a reserve of 4 to 6, plus tax, everything, about £1,000. Going on, I'll go on to the gentleman over there with £100. He said, who bought it? I said, I bought it. He said, Nick and Jackie goes, who bought it? He bought it. I said, well, if we'd known, he said, we could have sold it to you direct. So it's this big thing, right? So I go downstairs, I pay me tax on it, bastards. I pay my tax on it, £133. I take it home on the tube. So I've got this beautifully mounted set of shoes, socks, picture and everything. I get it home, 133 quid. Take it out of the bag. My wife comes to me and she said, what you bought? Bonham's big bag. What you bought? I said, I bought a pair of Norman's stage shoes. She says, how much was that? I said, a lot less than some of your shoes, darling. But that's how I ended up with the shoes.
What a find that was. You were a lucky man that day.
Moving back now to our stars, never mind me. You've done, obviously, television. And so you've not just done Frankie and Kenneth, you've done Noel Coward.
Well, that was really my television. I've done like one little scene in Little Britain, one scene in Doctor Who, but that series, Goodnight Sweetheart, is still shown. And it's on a roll,
Are you in Blade Runner?
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that because you'd have to be pretty smart to spot me in it. The very quick story of that was a Blade Runner 2, not the original Blade Runner, the remake. And I got this call to audition as a Liberace lookalike. And I said, well, I don't have a costume. I went to a friend of mine who's a wig maker, and I said, you haven't got something, can you make me look like Liberace? So I went to Basingstoke and came back with this wig that they lent me and some sideburns and some rings and a big glittery jacket. And went to the audition, and I mimed on the piano. They said, learn this whole recording of Liberace on his show doing Mac the Knife. Very long, complicated arrangements. So I spent the whole week sort of trying to, because I don't play piano, just doing that. And eventually I went in, it was a plastic chair with a Clavinova electric piano balanced on it. And I had to just do it on that in this little room. And I thought, well, and Bobby Crush was also auditioning. And I thought, well, I don't stand a chance. But lo and behold,
you pipped Bobby Crush, didn't you?
I actually pipped Bobby Crush. And I got the part. So I went up to Budapest. I just couldn't believe it. The new Blade Runner film is going to be amazing. And I was flown out for a costume fitting. And then a few weeks later, flown back to actually film it. And I worked with a man called Joe Walker. No relation to the character in Dad's Army.
All goes round in circles.
Who was the editor for Denis Villeneuve, who was directing it, who was a very famous director. And we worked for the whole morning on it. It was fantastic. They made this incredible Liberace stage outfit for me. White suit, diamante, the big white fur cape with the silver sequin lining, and we did this sequence where I came on stage and went, like that, and did this whole big thing. And they cut the whole sequence. The only bit that's left is a tiny little thing where Harrison Ford is going through this nightclub with a gun, and in the back, a hologram of Liberace. In the distance, in the far distance, you see me going, gone. That's it. And I sat there, as actors probably have since the beginning of movies, looking at the screen thinking, where's my bit? What happened? My greatest moment ended up on the cutting room floor. And that bit, if they'd used the bit that we'd filmed, it would have changed my life. But they didn't.
And everyone in the audience was going, isn't that Bobby Crush?
Probably are.
No, more Mrs. Mills.
I'm actually going out as a Bobby Crush impersonator after this.
I like the come to Basingstoke to look like Liberace. They'll put that, the council should put that on their advertising. So,
Well, I got the part.
They probably
but
have.
it was an illustration of when you have no control over that kind of thing, of film, television.
No, of course you don't.
It's only
No.
doing this that you really can control what you're doing.
And the point being that you don't just rely on one character, you come back to them every so often. You've done a wonderful fringe recently on Cato Street, 1820.
Yes, how many viewers know about the Cato Street plot of 1820? This was a plot to murder the entire government of Lord Liverpool, cabinet of Lord Liverpool, by beheading them, taking their heads on pikes to the Mansion House in the City of London and declaring a People's Provisional Government in waiting. Now, when I was flyering in Edinburgh doing this show, I had this flyer and I would say, this is a show about plot to kill the government. Every single person said, oh, that sounds a good idea. Oh, we'll be in that, won't we? Oh, do you need volunteers for that? Little old nice Morningside ladies, oh, Mrs. Ferguson, that sounds like something we'd be interested in. That kind of, I couldn't believe it. Really nice, distinguished looking people. The more middle class and educated they look, the more they want violent insurrection, it seems. So I did this show because it's a story that I'd been interested in for a long time. And I just thought, this is the time to tell it. Nearly just coming up for the 200th anniversary.
And who wrote it?
I did.
So again, it's taking
Actually, I didn't write
something-
it. Still haven't written it down. But I performed it for a whole month, just off bullet points. And
Really?
Yeah, I need now to sit down and listen to a recording. But it's an amazing story. The lives that people were living, the feeling in Britain 200 years ago, how angry people were. They were at war with the government. They hated the government, partly because of the Peterloo massacre that had happened 6 months earlier. And there was this real feeling of sort of impotent rage.
Proud bishops we will now translate among priest-crafted martyrs. The guillotine on piers awaits, and knights will hang in garters. Yeah, hang the bastards!
So people use cliches like history repeats itself, but it really does.
Oh, yeah.
It's always going to be the way.
And that's why I think history is so important, because if
Yeah.
you don't learn from these lessons, what's the point? That's partly why I did the show, to say to people, look at these resonances, to see, look at what's happening not just in Britain, but all over the world. There is a feeling, or there's a kind of vibe, or there's some process happening where people are becoming angry and feeling crying with this elite or whatever it is. Everybody seems to be at war with their governments right now. And this is a very interesting point in history, and it's interesting to see why this is happening. Any theories?
Yes, I have my theories. I believe
That's another show.
I think it's a lot of it's a lot of it's to do with anti-social media. I think it's the way that everyone can see straight away what's happening all over the world.
Absolutely,
And they can form a judgment,
Yes.
even based on something which may not be true. And I know that everyone said, oh, Trump invented the phrase fake news. I watch, like you do, lots of old films, and I was watching a drama from the late 40s about American newspaper baron. And actually, they were talking about fake news in those days, propaganda in those days.
Not even, but even further back. In fact, I found a wonderful, during my researches for the show, a lot of which I did in the British Library, and one thing leads to another, and I found an essay which gives a whole list of reasons why insurrections happen, insurgencies, why populations get restive. And it gives a whole list of things, including false news running up and down unchecked. And this is written by Francis Bacon in 1625. It's an essay called Of Seditions and Trouble, which I thoroughly recommend as a very prophetic read of not only what was happening 400 years ago, what's happening now.
So going into 2020, you've got the Cato Street play, you've got Dad's Army together. So what are your plans for the whole year? Do you have anything else you're doing together? Anything else individually?
There is talk at the moment, I don't know if we should say it, probably should.
Exclusive, yeah.
Exclusive. That we may record all 13 unadapted episodes of Dad's Army for radio. for, hopefully, BBC.
But that's not at all.
It's in the pipeline.
It's in the pipeline. It's one of the things we're looking at. There's also talk of an Allo production or performance on stage, which
one of you is playing Michelle?
It's got to be you, darling, isn't it? It's going to be you.
I could never hope to. Vicky Michelle.
Vicky Michelle from the Resistance.
As long as I can have Jack Haig, that's all I ask. It is I, Leclerc. Yes, that's what I want.
Well,
so this sounds like you've got a relationship going with Perry and Croft.
Yes, we have. Do you know what? We have a very lovely relationship with the Croft girls, actually, don't we? They're much like their father. They're very loyal and very loving, and they're really nice.
And
to
much like
work with,
the Wisdoms, they've seen our work and they absolutely love what we're doing. Thank goodness, they adored it, and very much want us to do more. And they're extremely supportive.
Yeah.
Well, I know the audiences love it.
Yeah.
And they'll keep coming back, and so will I. And I'd like to thank you both for giving some time
Bless
today.
you.
It's really
Bless your
lovely to see
heart.
you again.
Thank you.
Thank you very
dear
much.
Morris, for all you've done for me over the years. All the PR. Cut.
I'm just trying to give you an out in case you need
Yes, I know. David wouldn't shut up.
We were just waffling on about life. And
I know.
I forgot
There's
we were
more to
filming
be
it.
said. There's more to be said.
Oh, I did enjoy that, Charles.
So did I, Dolly.